Hello, America, and hello, everyone across the world. I would like to talk to you about a very serious subject called abuse of power. Abuse of power is when someone holds a certain position, such as authorities, or, court systems, such as prosecutors or judges. They have a little power behind their job and they abuse that power towards innocent people. Unfortunately, there's been several cases where the police have abused their power, mainly towards black men and minorities. Not only that, but the court system where the prosecutors have falsified evidence and the judges have been in cahoots to convict innocent black men or minorities. Now, I'm not saying that just because someone's not black or a minority that they can't be abused by the authorities. That's not what I'm saying at all. So I want to make that clear. But unfortunately, the world we live in, a lot of times the police specifically target black men. And the reason I want to talk to you about this subject is because there's a young man by the name of Willie Larkins in Montgomery, Alabama. Back in 2012, July 26th of 2012, Willie was framed by the Montgomery Police Department. Now, a lot of you may ask, why would Willie have been framed by the police? Well, Willie has a prior record. And because he have a prior record, they wanted to frame him to make their story look more believable. Because most of the time when you have a prior record and something happens, first, and you say that you didn't do it, most people aren't going to believe you because you have a prior record. And that's what they wanted, to be able to deceive people. And not to mention, a lot of people don't like to necessarily question the authorities when they say something out of fear. A lot of people are intimidated by the police. But as far as my feelings, I don't think anybody should be intimidated by a person because of their position, because police officers, prosecutors, and judges are just human beings, and perfect human beings at that. And they do make mistakes and do crooked things, just like any other Joe Blow off the streets. So I don't know why people are so surprised. What really bothers me is that a lot of people tend to fear police officers or, judges or prosecutors, but yet and still they don't fear the Creator, Jehovah God. If it was me, I would rather fear Jehovah rather than fear another man. So a lot of people, I'm quite sure a lot of people is probably thinking that's a pretty bold statement to make and put out here on YouTube. But my thing is, I don't fear any man but God, because man can't save themselves. They can't stop themselves from getting sick. They can't stop themselves from dying. They are just imperfect human beings, and a lot of times, unfortunately, people, I don't know how to put this. A lot of times people just like to be manipulating, and what I mean by manipulating is a lot of people in this world like to hold up an image, so to say. A lot of people like to be deceitful. I just kind of feel like we live in a world based upon lies, because people go by image. And what I mean by people go by image is a lot of times the police, bosses or, other affiliates, that are part of, the whole authority system would know this type of behavior is going on, but sit back and do absolutely nothing until the police are caught red-handed. And when it goes to the public's eye, then everybody and their father and their mothers run into the rescue, pretending like, oh, I'm not going to tolerate this type of behavior, or I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. But yet and still, you've known about this behavior the whole time and did absolutely nothing about it. As far as Willie case goes, what first made me get suspicious of the police is their stories changed a million times. So when their stories kept changing a million times, I knew something wasn't right. So in order to get to the bottom of what was going on, I knew I was going to have to dig deeper into the situation to find out exactly what was going on. Willie was accused of 4 counts of first-degree robbery. Willie was accused of robbing an off-duty police officer's business and his worker, which was a female. The off-duty police officer's name is Jason Thornton. He owns a cash advance store on West Ferry Road, and his worker is Rachel Bowles. They claim on July 26, around 6:46, that Willie came into the store, robbed the lady after talking to her for 5 minutes, and Jason supposedly chased him, and he jumped into a getaway car who was driven by Albert, who is Willie's cousin on his father's side. Now, the way Willie was entwined in this whole story and actually set up is because Albert, Willie's cousin, is a police informer. And Willie had just met Albert a couple months before this incident had happened. Willie was actually at a place called Life Tech, and he had just been released from Life Tech 7 days before this incident even occurred. And Willie had just met Albert before going to Life Tech because Albert was incarcerated and just getting ready to be released. Willie didn't grow up around his father's side of the family. Albert is related to him on his father's side of the family. But Willie didn't know that Albert was a police informer, which is fine if that's what he wants to do. But unfortunately, the police asked Albert to find someone with the prior records to put some robbery charges on, and he told them about Willie. Albert now regrets his actions because he know it was wrong for him to, get his cousin involved in all this nonsense. I kind of feel like now he regrets his actions to this day, but sometimes, it's a little bit too late when you do certain things. You can't just go back and undo them, But the way the real story happened is on July 26th between 5:30 and 6 o'clock, the cash advance was robbed by Albert, who the police hired to do the robberies for them. And Jason, the owner, did a fake chase, basically, along with some more officers. And Albert fell in a lady's yard, during the chase. And when he fell in the lady's yard, that's when Jason and the officers caught him brought him back to the crime scene and showed Rachel, look, we caught the robber. So you can calm down, basically. And so once they did that, they let Albert go and change clothes and then pick up Willie. Willie lived at least like 10 minutes from the police station. So once they knew that Albert had Willie with him, they did a fake 911 call literally almost an hour later, stating a robbery in progress. The way Albert was able to get Willie to go with him is he invited him to dinner. And Willie's side of his house for a couple minutes, and the wife said, "Hey, I need something taken back to the store." He said, "Can it wait?" And she said, "No, I need to pay a bill." So Albert told Willie he need to make a stop at supposedly one of Willie's other cousin's house, who Willie had never met, by the name of Greg. And as soon as they bagged into the driveway, that's when a squad officer in the SUV swung around the corner and snatched Willie out the passenger side and put a gun to his back. But of course, legal paperwork, he claims that he got both of them out of the car, but an eyewitness actually saw Willie on the ground with a gun to his back. And the officer claims the reason he had a gun on, he says both of them, but he claims he didn't have any handcuffs handy, but he had his gun. Now, come on, people. I have never heard of a police officer not having any handcuffs, but you just so happen to have your gun. So anyway, I'm going to play the tape of the witnesses who actually saw everything. Now, the guy that's in the tape, him and his sister, the guy has been ran out of town by the police. And the reason I say he has been ran out of town by the police is because when I went back to check on the witnesses and I told them that I had found out the robbery was a scam and everything, the sister said that the brother just came in to work one day and just told her he's moving out of town. That was what she first told me. Now, she is actually denying that they even spoke to me about the robber's skin color or his height. And she's telling me that her brother is running in fear of his life. Now, there is nothing in this tape. When you hear this tape, there is nothing in this tape that will make anybody run for their lives. So that gave me an indication that the police had spoken with them in some kind of way, have scared them to the point, she's scared to continue to be honest. Unfortunately, she didn't know that they were being tape recorded. So this would be her first time ever hearing herself over the internet. So maybe this will prompt her to go back to telling the truth. She was pretty hostile when I talked to her last time. I just called her and I told her that an attorney will be calling her. And I said, I know you spoke with the guy for civil rights, but an attorney will be calling you very soon about this case because it's being appealed. And she was pretty hostile and she denied they ever spoke to me about any of this stuff. But, it's a good thing that I was smart enough to tape record it. And I also told them that I was a student going to school to be a journalist. And in order to get a scholarship, I'll need facts about about this particular story. So this is the reason I was able to get the evidence I need and secretly tape record them, because I knew that would be the only way that I could, be able to get the evidence. Unfortunately, a lot of people are probably thinking like, okay, so why didn't the attorney do anything? Well, the attorney was hired last January of 2013. The attorney went to see Willie when he was first hired. He didn't tell Willie about any of the evidence. And the second time he went to see Willie was actually last month for the second time. So literally he went to see Willie twice in 1 year. Now, that gave me an indication that he was working along with the police. Not to mention that when this case went to trial, he didn't subpoena anybody. And when, me and the mom and, the family would contact him regarding the case, he would put me on hold for 20 and 25 minutes and hoping that I'll hang up the phone. And once when I went to see him, he was yelling and screaming to the top of his lungs at me for no reason. So I don't know what his reason for doing this. Maybe he could have been paid. Maybe he could have been promised something regarding his career. I mean, I don't know his reason for doing what he did, but I do know that his behavior gave me an indication that he was working along with the cops. They also falsified evidence in court. Their own evidence of discovery, they switched because out of one of these places that was robbed, the guy's physique didn't fit Willie's. So they played a whole different tape of a different man wearing a different shirt in court. And unfortunately, I have my suspicions that the judge is in on this scam to help protect the police officers. And the reason I say this is because when this went to trial, it had been rescheduled 8 times, by the way. They took this case to trial out of the blue. And I asked the judge, I told the judge, so to say, that this would not be a fair trial because there's nobody subpoenaed on Willie's behalf. But to our surprise, the attorney started cross-examining the witnesses out of absolutely nowhere. And he did a pretty good job of it. And the reason I think he may have did that, people, is because he was being recorded by the court reporter. And he didn't want to make it seem like he wasn't doing his job for when the case is appealed. Now, the gun that was supposedly used in the robbery has no fingerprints. Now, how convenient was that? Not to mention, he caught the police in a lie. He pretty much caught everybody in the stand in a lie that was there as a witness for the police. And one of the officers wrote a report stating it was some guy named Big T. And he tried to deny it, but the attorney said, well, I have the report right here. And not to mention that Albert had mentioned to one of the people in jail that him and a guy named Big T went on some robbery spree. Now, this guy was not even in the court. Yes, he wasn't even in the courtroom when the attorney bought this out. As a matter of fact, the judge made the jury leave the courtroom when they brought the guy in to see what the guy had to say. And once he seen that the guy had told, what Albert told him about him and the guy named Big T, was on a robbery spree, he actually dismissed the guy and then brought the jury back in. And what made me get suspicious of the judge is because on the second day, because the trial went on for 2 days, this is 4 counts of robbery now. He told the jury he asked one of the jurors, he says, don't one of y'all got to go pick up your child or your grandchild? And the lady raised her hand. So he says, I'm going to give y'all 15 minutes to go back and deliberate. And if you all hadn't reached a verdict in 15 minutes, then we're going to carry this over to tomorrow. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I have never heard of a jury reaching a verdict in 15 minutes on 4 counts. That's a little crazy. And then the next day when they reached a verdict, they were back there for like 40 or 45 minutes. And actually one of the jurors came out shaking her head and she was looking at me. She was shaking her head as if she didn't agree with what was about to happen. So when I spoke to Willie, I asked him, did he notice that one of the jurors was shaking her head like she didn't agree with what was about to happen? And he said that he noticed that. And he asked me, was I referring to the little short lady? And I said, yes. And he says, yes, because she looked at me and was shaking her head. They only had one juror read the verdict. It was not passed around to everyone. The attorney didn't ask for all the jurors to read, their verdict individually or nothing. Not to mention, I told you that they played a whole different tape of a guy wearing a different shirt and everything in court. So I really wasn't surprised with the turnout. But the case is now actually being appealed. There's several officers involved. There's Detective Snub. I think the other guy's name is Forsyth. Maybe I'm pronouncing his name wrong. There's a Gibson that wrote the report. There's a Officer Myers that came to the house on the 26th. There's so many officers actually involved in this whole scheme, and we have so much paperwork. The police switched Albert from parole to probation and gave him a fake AIS number and everything. They took him off of probation. After they switched him to probation, they took him off, gave him a fake AIS number and everything. So they did a whole lot of fraudulent stuff. We have court reporting papers from the preliminary where several lies were told. We also have paperwork where Albert actually pled guilty in June for being the actual robber. And they tried to deny the fact that he pled guilty to being the actual robber. And I have the paperwork signed by the judge. Now, they wasn't thinking, because when this first happened, the police had no evidence at all, of course, because the whole thing was a scheme. The only thing they had was Albert signing a piece of paper claiming to be a getaway driver. And that's what they mentioned in the preliminary, and we have the paperwork. So what type of sense does that make, that he would say that he was the getaway driver in the beginning, then turn around several months later and go to court and say, hey, I was the getaway driver again? That doesn't even make any sense. If you already have a form where he signed to be a getaway driver, why would you go back several months later and say, I'm pleading guilty to being the getaway driver? See, these police officers are dumb, to be honest. They wasn't using their head. They was just trying to carry out a scheme. Oh, and by the way, their own evidence shows that this was a scheme, because this evidence, you could tell, was pre-shot in advance. Number one, because the police officer's business have no name on the outside, and this business have big letters across the top of the business that was there way before July. The two businesses in the tape, the two places beside the cash advance are empty in this tape, and there was actually a guy moving in with the computer store at the time of the robbery. And so that tells you alone that this had been pre-shot in advance. Not to mention, they got a hat thrown on the ground because the robber was wearing a disguise. He was wearing a hat and shades. So they got a hat thrown on the ground that's not even the same color hat. They got a pair of keys thrown on the ground. And if you claiming it was a getaway car, where's the robber going without his keys? So they wasn't thinking when they pre-shot this in advance. And the tape, as far as the other two businesses that was robbed, one of the other business is a No Way Jose that's located on Minnie Brown Road. Is owned by a Caucasian female by the name of Casey Macy. And the other business is a fire sub on Atlanta Highway in the shopping center. Now, if you notice, there's a pattern where well, of course, you all had noticed, but for the people who have heard about the case, there's a pattern where the owners would be the owners and the fire sub. In this one particular case, the manager showed up for court in each one of these instances. No workers, nobody else showed up in each one of these places. So that let me know that everybody is in cahoots together, because there were several lies told by Casey Basie. There were several lies told by Art Day, who is the manager at Fire Sub. So that let me know that everybody was in cahoots together. Apparently, these people that I mentioned, such as Casey Macy and Art Day, are friends with these police officers, or possibly even family members. As far as the No Way Jose, they say no money was taken. They claim a guy walked in, ordered a beer, and claimed she was working behind the bar when the guy produced the gun. I had a chance to speak to Casey Macy. She was very hostile, number one, for no reason. I was very nice to her. The only reason that I spoke to her is not because I thought Willie was guilty. I knew he wasn't guilty, number one. because Willie was headed back to Life Tech. His mother was taking him back to Life Tech at the time that they say these crimes happened. I just wanted to speak to Casey Macy at first to see if she was in cahoots with this whole scheme or not. And after speaking to her and seeing her behavior, I knew then that she was in cahoots with these cops, not to mention the lies that was conflicting at the preliminary hearing. The lies, that they mentioned at the preliminary hearing, which was already recorded. So I knew that she was involved. After speaking with her, me and a private investigator went out to the storage place actually behind the No Way Jose, and he told us that he caught the robber on tape. And he said the police asked him if he had video surveillance, and he said, "Why, yes, I do. Let's go in and review the tapes." And he said as soon as he told them that, the police officers back, threw their hands up, got a call out of nowhere on their walkie-talkies saying that they're at Walmart, took off, never came back to get the tape. Now, people, he has clear video surveillance, clear, where you can see if somebody is running out in front of the storage place. But he said he was puzzled as to why they never wanted to come back and get the tape. And he stated that the robber was skinny and that that he caught it on tape. And I have that in writing. Also, when it came to the fire sub, there was a young black lady who was robbed. I had the pleasure of speaking to her as well, and she told me it wasn't Willie or Albert, and her friend could be witness to that. Now, I already knew that it wasn't Willie or Albert, but I wanted to see, what everybody had to say. And the reason I knew it wasn't Willie or Albert, because I knew that they had tried to get somebody brown skin to look like Willie. But what they did with this tape is you cannot see the guy's face at all. You can't see his face at all. You can only see a little bit of it where you can see where the guy has no mustache. But in the end of the tape, it shows the guy named Big T, his picture, as well as another guy in their evidence of discovery tape. And of course, the tape has no dates on it. And most tapes that are shot in, convenience stores and such, things like that, they have dates and times on it. But in each instance, such as their first evidence of discovery, which I have a copy of, and then this other tape that they played in court, neither have a date and a time on it. How convenient. But number one, because they're playing a tape of two different guys. The one from their first tape, the guy's wearing a yellow shirt, and he's very, very short. His legs are very short, as a matter of fact, which is what the girl told me, that the guy was like extra short, and his body physique doesn't fit Willie's. His muscles are too big, like way too big. And so in the second tape, they got somebody wearing a black and white striped shirt, but they got on legal paperwork that the robber was wearing a yellow shirt. So the tape that was played in court, it was a guy wearing a black and white striped shirt. So anybody that was a member of the jury could be witness that they played a tape of a guy wearing a black and white shirt. Not to mention, Willie said that the judge ran back there 3 times trying to get him to sign a guilty plea. And he even sent the sheriff back there trying to get him to sign a guilty plea. And his attorney, right before trial, tried to get him to sign a guilty plea, even knowing that we had all this evidence. So people, you all be the judge as to what you all think. Does this sound suspicious to you? Because I know for sure this was a scam, but I know that some people are going to voice their opinions about what they think. But to me, they're just opinions. And to Willie, they're just opinions, because as long as Jehovah God knows the truth and we know the truth, that's all that matters. But of course, we want of course, we want everybody else to be able to see the truth, because Willie's an innocent man that was given a life sentence for something he didn't do. So, of course, we will want other people to recognize the fact that he's innocent, so he could be able to come home to his family, because it's not fair for him to sit there and suffer for something he didn't do because of a couple of crooked cops that decide to run a scheme, and they're trying to get away with it. The police have been going around telling people that I'm just trying to help somebody get away with something and this and that. First of all, I have never done any crime a day in my life. I have a very good reputation, and everybody that knows me knows I'm very honest, and that I would never participate in something crazy as far as, ruining my reputation or, anything like that. I would never do that. Number one, the only thing I'm doing is I'm sticking up for people's rights everywhere. To be honest, I'm sticking up for Willie's rights, my rights, every other innocent human being out there that have been falsely imprisoned for something they didn't do, because most people are too scared or intimidated by the police to stick up for their rights, and I knew in order to get the evidence, that I had to pose as different people to get the evidence that I needed. Now I'm going to go ahead and play the tape. Now, I want people to post comments to what I had to say. I know some of you all may be a little bit confused about certain things because, maybe I wasn't too clear, but I'm going to let you all listen to the tape and hear what the witness have to say. And I want you to post some comments, and respond to me. But if you have any negativity, anything negative to say, I will delete your comments, because I don't respond to negativity. I don't have that type of negative stuff in my life. I'm not going to tolerate negativity, simply because this is a very serious matter. This is a young man that is suffering for something that he did not do. Albert even tried to tell on the police before by a confession letter where it was notarized, where he was stating that the police asked him to say this stuff on Willie. So even though he first originally had signed a piece of paper claiming to be the getaway driver, he, later on decided to do the confession letter because he felt bad about what he did. And of course, the police basically set him up too, because now they have him entwined in the mess, because they had promised to let him go. But unfortunately, when we found out that the whole thing was a scam, they needed to keep Albert in jail in order not to make it look so obvious. And they've been trying to find a way to get him out since this whole thing has happened. But unfortunately, none of their schemes have worked. So Albert is very upset about that. And he was mentioning to Willie that they tricked me. And of course, when you're working with the devil, what do you expect? I mean, these people are basically wolves in sheep clothing. I mean, he should have known that these people could turn on him at any time. As a matter of fact, they set him up so good that just in case he decided to stab them in the back, they tape recorded him while they're asking him questions. They tape recorded him, and they actually played the tape in court when he refused to answer the prosecutor's questions, because the prosecutor brought him in as a witness against Willie, but Albert refused to answer his questions. So he got so mad that he played the tape. So he asked Albert again, and he says, I'm going to ask you, did you say these things in the confession letter, and this is your signature, and so on and so forth. And Albert said yes. So he was so mad that he turned red. But my thing is, this whole thing is a scam. Me personally, Willie has forgiven Albert for what he has done to him, because Willie is a very loving person. Despite his past, he is very loving. Willie has never physically hurt anybody. You know, he's made a mistake in his life before, but, you know, he learned from that. He grew from that, you know, and I just kind of feel like Willie hasn't had a fair chance in life because, you know, when he first got into trouble, you know, I'm not even speaking on this particular issue. When he first got into trouble, he was 16, and I feel like he didn't have a fair chance because his attorney that his mom hired, she didn't know that this guy was a creep. Basically, this guy had ripped a lot of people off in the town and was actually protested here a couple years back. His name is Jerry Blevins. He got Willie trialed as an adult. So, you know, Willie did, you know, several years behind bars as a child. So I kind of felt like him living in the state of Alabama didn't do him any justice. And unfortunately, this type of stuff happened on a regular basis throughout Alabama. I have a friend that is actually a business owner. He owns several businesses, and the police framed him here a couple years back, and he was convicted by a jury. And he had to spend over $30,000 to get himself out of that mess. And he told me, he says, Toya, you know, they framed me, and I knew that he didn't do the things they said that he did. And we have the civil rights involved. We first had Al Sharpton's organization involved, and the guy that was working the case was being a little bit too extra precautious for our taste. So unfortunately, we had to switch to the NAACP, which is a great organization. But, you know, of course, you know, they have a process as well. And so we just recently got the Justice Department involved. So the NAACP and the Justice Department will be teaming up, hopefully, to, you know, get some type of justice for this issue, as well as we just got a new organization involved to help out as well. And it's called People in Action. And actually, the owner of this business was actually framed by the police. So he know firsthand what Willie is going through and what we are going through in general, because the police, when they do something wrong, they're not going to admit to their wrongdoing. They will do whatever it takes to try to get away with being crooked, including kill in certain cases. I mean, so I understand what I'm doing is kind of risky, but I feel like sometimes it takes risking a life in order to save a life. And for anybody who has a family member or have someone that they love that has been falsely incarcerated, you know, I would say to you is to stick up for your rights. Stick up for your family members' rights. You know, don't just let people walk all over you because they have a certain position. You know, abuse of power is something that has been taking place for years, you know, and it's time that people really stick up for themselves and not be bullied by a person because of a position that they hold. Now, I'm going to go ahead and play the tape for you. And after I play the tape, I'm going to speak a few more words, and then I'm going to end this video. Here's the tape. Just 1 second. Okay. I'm going to put it kind of close. Now, this is me walking.
To me. I just been busy. Really and truly, I'm really doing this Christian story because I'm trying to get into college and I want to become a journalist. And in order to do that and like get them to pay for my college, I have to do like a story with actual facts. You know, so that's why I was asking you guys like what happened piece by piece and stuff. So we're gonna go over this really quick before the people come in the store. So I can make sure I got actual facts or whatever. So when I get the story done, I can show you guys. But hopefully it'll help me get a scholarship, you know. So, Okay. So back to Thursday, the 26th of July. Okay, of July. Sorry. Okay. You were doing what?
He was outside.
He was outside? Okay.
I was on his side doing the liquor.
Okay, and so the robbery happened around what time?
6:15.
6:15, okay. And what was the guy wearing?
Blue shirt, blue jeans.
Well, you gotta come over here because I can't really hear you.
He's wearing blue shirt and blue jeans.
Blue shirt, blue jeans?
Right, and dark shades.
Okay.
I was a blue shirt when he was sitting in the back of the car.
Okay, so he had a blue shirt, blue jeans on. What kind of shoes did he have on?
They're blue.
Huh?
He had on all blue.
He had on all blue?
Yeah.
And a red baseball cap?
Right, and dark shades.
And dark shades?
Right.
And you saw the guy's face?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And what skin color was he?
He was light, dark skin.
He was lighter skin?
Yeah.
Okay. So, how tall was he? About 6, you said 6 feet last time.
About 6, 7.
6 feet?
Yeah.
6 feet or so? Okay. Okay. And I should have brought my notepad in so I could write all this down. Okay, so when I showed you the two guys before, you said it was which one of them in the picture?
The top one.
The first one at the top?
Right.
And that one I believe was Albert.
Yeah.
Okay. And are you sure it was Albert?
Yeah.
100% sure.
Oh yeah, 'cause I was standing outside when everything was going on. He had a gun pointed up to her forehead, and that's
And where was when he had the gun to his forehead, where was the boss where was her boss?
he was on the other side of his desk,
Right.
and that's why he didn't pull his gun, because the bad dude had the gun pointed at the girl's forehead,
Okay.
and that's why he didn't pull his gun, because he might have shot her.
Okay. So going back to July, you was outside smoking a cigarette.
Right.
Okay. And the guy walks up and does what?
Just walks right on there.
Walks right on in.
Yeah.
And then he gets in and pulls a gun on the lady.
Yeah.
And from there, you see him run out the store and the owner run behind him.
Right.
And when he's chasing him, the guy's wearing what?
The one next door,
The robber's wearing what?
blue jeans and a blue shirt.
Blue jeans, blue shirt. What color shoes?
Blue.
And a red baseball cap, you see it?
Yep, dark shades.
Dark shade. Okay. And his skin color is what color?
Right. Right, this.
Light complexion?
Yeah.
Light skin? Lighter than me?
Right.
Okay. And when I pointed to the guys that's in the picture, the one at the top, you said it is.
Right.
So you were 100% sure it was Albert.
Yeah, definitely.
100% sure.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick Albert out in the lineup, you can pick him out.
Yeah.
You sure it was Albert?
Yeah.
And was there a getaway car waiting a couple streets over?
No.
There is no getaway car.
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
And how are you sure of that?
I asked the people next door, and they said no, it was not. Because they chased him from the store to the mall.
Who said it was not a getaway car?
The man that was working over there in the store, the one that chased him, because he's the police.
Jason said it was no getaway car?
Yeah.
Okay. So you asked him right after the robbery?
Yeah.
And what time the robbery happened around? You said 6:15?
6:15.
In the broad daylight.
Yeah. Because they was out there taking pictures of his foot, of his tennis shoes out in the parking lot.
Okay. Maybe I should have bought a notepad so I can remember all this stuff. Because it probably would have been better. This thing is not one of my purse. Okay, maybe I should like bought a notepad or something so next time, like I can have all the extra. Okay. But okay, let's go one more time. Blue shirts.
Right.
Okay. Okay, 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And the guy, did he have a beard?
No.
No?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
So the guy you pointed to was Albert.
Right.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Definitely sure.
You're 100% sure.
Right on, because I saw his face.
You saw his face?
Yeah, but I couldn't see the rest of it because he had on the shades.
Right.
I couldn't see the color of his eyes, but I know that was him.
Right. But where are people getting this getaway car story from?
Well, he ran on feet.
And there was no getaway car?
No.
And how do you know that?
Well, if it was a getaway car, it'd be parked out in the driveway.
Yeah, but they were saying the getaway car is a couple streets over.
I didn't see no getaway car because when that guy ran out of the store, it wasn't no getaway car.
I know. It wasn't on waiting on the other street?
See?
Are you sure? How do you know there was no getaway car?
Because the lady's house, when they finally picked him up, I know the lady. And she said there was no car there.
She said there was no getaway car waiting a couple streets over?
There was no getaway car.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Positive. Everybody in the afterwards were laughing because he went and robbed at gunpoint, held the gun to the lady's forehead, took off running, and had no plan. That's what they said. He had no plan, it looked like. He just running.
Well, where are people getting this getaway car story from?
I have no idea. I have no idea where they got the 2 people in the thing. The
Because
guy brought him back. There was only 1 person in the car.
I even asked the police was it a
He said it was a lighter complected, the one Albert. Did you see his skin?
Was that the one that came in I saw was like your skin complexion, bald and really round. He was heavy set. And I gave him a paper towel. That's why I know he was bald. He was mopping his head. He was sweating.
Oh, you talking about the police officer?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the police.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about the robber.
Oh. All I saw was in the back of the police car. You can't get really...
Oh, okay. So your brother saw his face better. Okay.
And then, like I asked the police, was it a getaway car? He said no. He said it's not. No car inside Bellwood whatsoever.
You asked who? What police officer?
I can't remember his name. But I asked one of the police out there. He said it was no car. No car at all.
But Jason told you as well there's no getaway car?
That's right. He told me the same thing.
So where are people getting this getaway car story from?
I don't know.
Are y'all sure?
I'm positive. I promise you it wasn't no getaway car. Because if it was, they wouldn't have caught him.
Right.
Okay, then so if they caught him, and if it wasn't no getaway car, how did he get caught?
And what street did they catch him on?
Well, at the mall.
Oh, going towards the mall?
Yeah.
That street? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if there wasn't no getaway car, he wouldn't have got caught.
Right.
If there was a car involved, he wouldn't have got caught, right?
Right.
Okay. So that tells you there wasn't no car involved if he got caught. And then back to the police car.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to bring my notepad because I'm not going to remember all this stuff. Please do not say this to the people next door or
I don't
anything.
say nothing to nobody because it ain't nobody's business.
Right.
What goes on in here does not go on.
Right. Okay. Okay, well, I just really hope I get like a good grade on this or whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stanley, for your time. And I will bring my notepad back next time, chat down everything because I don't want to forget anything. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Make sure the story is absolutely correct.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Stanley.
You're welcome.
Okay, people, what you just heard were the actual witnesses to this crime. Like I said, the guy has been ran out of town. His sister keeps stating that he's in fear and running for his life, but she's not stating as to why. I think she's more hostile towards me because I told her I was a student and I needed the story to get her scholarship. And now, unfortunately, they're being threatened by police officers. But of course, she won't admit to it because, as you can see, there was nothing threatening in this interview that I did with Mr. Stanley or his sister. I simply asked them to tell what they saw. And as you heard, the sister said she saw the guy in the back of the patrol car in the beginning of the tape, and she said it was a light-skinned male in the back of the car. Now, the place Willie was arrested was in a completely different area from the street that you just heard them say that the robber was arrested on. Jason, the police officer, is claiming that he chased the robber to that street and that he jumped into a getaway car, which he lied about. And the story that they gave Rachel, who is also on tape, Rachel told the time that it happened right at 6 o'clock in the tape. She also stated, when I was asking her about the robber's height in the tape, she stated that Jason told her the smaller one, as in height, was the driver. And I have that on tape. The reason Jason told her the smaller one, as in height, was the driver is because he knew that Rachel seen the robber's height. You see what I'm saying? Albert is taller than Willie, so he knew that she seen the robber's height. So in order to deceive her, he told her that Willie was the getaway driver. So which is why Rachel is coming to court, because she's believing that Willie was the getaway driver because she knows that Albert was she knows that Albert was the robber. And she's believing that Willie was the getaway driver, and that she's thinking that somebody is trying to help him get away with something, which is not even the case. Jason and his friends are the ones that are lying to her, and deceiving her. But of course, she believes him because he's a cop, and there goes that image that I told you that sometimes people try to portray. They try to portray this little innocent image and deceive people. But in reality, Jason is a wolf in sheep clothing. So anyway, you heard it yourself, people. I could play the tape of Rachel if you all would be interested. But unfortunately, the tape with Rachel, I'm jumping and switching as far as the questions back and forth, I'm telling her that I'm there for a loan, so I'll talk to her about the robbery. Then I'll jump and talk to her about getting a loan to kind of throw her off, to be able to try to get some information out of her. The only good pieces that I got out of Rachel is the time that the crime happened, as far as, Jason telling her that the smaller one, as in height, was the getaway driver, which wasn't true, but that's what he's telling her, because there was no getaway car. And another thing is she told how much money they keep in the store, which is $150. And they're stating on paper that $168 was taken. So where would the extra money have come from? Not to mention, she actually did tell me the robber's height, that he was 6 some feet tall in the tape. But those are pretty much the good pieces that I got out of her, because she actually said she don't remember how the robber looks, but when he went to court, she got in court and she lied, unfortunately, because she had been coached into what to say. And she lied and said that it was Willie. But she's actually on tape as well, stating that she was so hysterical, she don't remember how the robber looks at all, except as far as the height. So, she's on tape. So, and of course, the prosecutor claims that he didn't know the tapes exist until the day of the court. And of course, he said, well, I wouldn't have let the tapes in anyway. So, of course, he pretty much would not have let anything in that was going to prove Willie innocence, because they want to be able to help these cops get away with what they did, as well as he wants to prosecute. So there you have it yourself. Hardcore evidence. There's lots of paperwork to bag up. As far as what I have said, there's plenty of paperwork to back that up. So, people, you judge for yourself. And once again, I'm going to say to you for the last time, do not be surprised at people's behavior, because they are only imperfect human beings. There you have it, hardcore evidence, the Montgomery Police Department being corrupt. There's several more people that I actually didn't get a chance to name because I went to just about every place in Montgomery. I went to the FBI's office for help. I actually wound up getting into it with the supervisor at the FBI's office. I went there 4 times. I went to the Attorney General's office. The guy there, Mr. Zook, he waited till he got me alone, and he says, yeah, believe me, the evidence you have won't stand up in court until I called him back and I told him, that I told him that the civil rights had the case. And then he says, hey, you remember that evidence you got? I told you to give to your attorney, but that's not what he said. So, unfortunately, people, like I said, they hold up a certain image. I mean, what they're doing to Willie is completely low down on every single level because they wouldn't want anybody to do this to them or their family members, but yet and still they're doing it to somebody else. It's almost like a killer. A killer can go and kill somebody, but they don't want nobody to kill them, so, I can't speak as far as, how they get sleep at night, knowing all the evil stuff that they're doing. Apparently, they're just wicked hearted people. They all have, wicked hearts. They're able to, do evil and get plenty of rest at night, As far as I spoke on Casey Macy, she lied about it being Willie, but she didn't know that I would go and speak to the storage owner and that he will give a completely different story from what she gave. Again, Art Day, he's lying. And not to mention the second tape. Now, listen to this, people. The second tape that they played in court, you can see Art Day's face, but you can't see the robber's face. Now, how convenient is that? Yeah, these people are some real devils, I tell you. But like I said, post your comments. And I just kind of feel like it's time for us to stick up for, our rights and to stop this abuse of power. I mean, it's been going on too long. I know we're not going to be able to change the world, but at least, the next time a officer or, a prosecutor or judge or anybody that has some type of power behind them, at least the next time they think about doing something corrupt, they will think twice because there will be some type of consequences for their actions. I hate that, these witnesses are in fear of their lives, which is very unfortunately, and I know that they're upset because they kind of feel like I got them involved in this by doing the interview. But my thing is, I don't feel like I was doing anything wrong because they were witnesses to an actual crime. So I don't feel like I'm at fault here because I didn't make the police go and threaten them. So why the hostility towards me? If anything, direct your hostility towards the police, because they're the ones who's responsible for all this, not to mention responsible for threatening, Stanley and trying to force his sister to change her story. So be mad at them. Don't be mad at me because I have not once asked anybody to be dishonest. And as far as the girl from the fire sub, she can be witness. I never asked her to be dishonest. Even her friend who I first talked to, who got me in touch with her, she could be witness. I never asked anybody to be dishonest. I always told people, tell the truth. Tell what you saw, what happened. That's it. The truth is the truth, people. So unfortunately, when people want to do wrong and get away with it, they don't want to hear the truth. I'm speaking of the police officers. It infuriates them when you have evidence to bag up, what you have to say. They don't like that. People don't like to hear the truth, especially when they know they have done wrong. My thing is, if the police really wanted to do the right thing, they could have made up anything. They could have said, hey, look, we got the wrong guy, anything. But they have gone too far with this. Willie's been locked up since 2012. It's now 2014. And not only that, Willie was given a life sentence for something he didn't do. Here in the state of Alabama, they got the 3-strike law. And see, Willie has a prior record. So he was given life without parole for something he did not do. I cannot imagine what Willie must be feeling to be in the situation he's in. I can't imagine that, to be given a life sentence for something that you didn't do. And you have to sit there every day for the rest of your life knowing that you're an innocent person and knowing that people know you're innocent, but because they work in law enforcement, people trying to help them get away with something. I mean, it's disgusting. And every time I see a police car, I get sick to the stomach because I'm thinking, who knows who's behind the wheel of that car? Is it a good police officer or is it a corrupt one? And that's the feeling I get when I see patrol cars nowadays, because I've seen firsthand how far the police will go to cover up from doing something crooked. My name is Latoya Villa Gomez. Thank you for listening. I know I've spoken a lot. I'm going to end this tape now, and thank you for listening.
Hello, people. It's Latoya Villa Gomez again. I think there is something I forgot to say in the first tape. And what I was going to say is the reason I believe that they framed Willie is because they were running an insurance scam, or they were trying to cover for a police informer. I'm assuming that this guy, Big T, is a police informer, and that they wanted to swap Willie out in his place, and they promised to let Albert go if he finds someone to take the blame for these robberies with the prior record. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and speculate on that too much. All I know is that Willie was framed. Some of the officers that was involved, like I said, is Jason Thornton. There's a Gibson that wrote a report. There's a Detective Snub that's 100% involved. Forsyth, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. I have to look at my paperwork again. And like I said, there's a Myers. There's a... there's several officers actually to name. So when this all really hits the fan, then, I'll, give you all more information as to all the officers' names, because there's a couple more to name. There's the squad officer who I forgot to mention that the guy at the storage place said it was a squad officer on the scene for the No Way Jose back in May, which let me know there was also a connection there, because how would this same officer just so happen to be in the area of July 26th, and get a call and then make an arrest? That doesn't even seem right. He said that it was a squad officer in an SUV on the scene back in May 27 of 2012, which is when the robbery happened for the No Way Jose in the fire sub. That to me seems very suspicious that a squad, officer would be on the scene in May and then turn around, be just so happen in the area of July 26 and get a call. So therefore I know it's definitely a connection. So before anybody get to hollering, oh, they slandering my name, she's slandering my name, she's this and she's that. Well, let me tell you something. There's solid evidence that you're 100% involved in the scam. What you're doing to this man is wrong on every level. And the Bible says you reap what you sow. And Jehovah's words doesn't lie. So therefore, all you officers that are involved, you detectives, you business owners such as Casey Macy, and then the manager at the fire sub. Now, Art Day was not at the preliminary. I believe the owner was there in his spot, but I can't be sure as to who that guy was there, who was speaking to Albert's wife at the preliminary. So I don't know who he was. There was a guy there at the preliminary that was socializing with Albert's wife. So I don't know who that was, but what I do know is that everybody's in cahoots together and there's some type of scheme being ran here. So therefore, I just wanted to, make sure I include everything in this second posting that I'm going to post. I could have showed you all the paperwork, but, that would have been just pretty much overdoing it. So therefore, I just left it at the voice recording instead of, showing all the paperwork and so on and so forth. I'm going to leave that type of stuff for the attorney to present, the new attorney. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope to get a lot of support from, everyone listening. I don't care what skin color you are. Color doesn't matter to me. These officers may look at color, but I don't discriminate. I dated outside my race majority of my whole life. I don't discriminate against color, but I do stand for my black people when, people are abusing them for no reason. Now, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes black people don't make it easy because black people tend to discriminate against one another, such as, they're always killing one another, jealous of one another when one person maybe accomplished something, as far as like if somebody gets a high paying job, the next person may be jealous. They're always, majority of the time trying to tear each other down instead of trying to build each other up. That's something I don't like that black people tend to do. I don't agree with that. I feel like everybody should try to upbuild one another. I don't think by me posting these videos is going to change the world, because I know it's going to take Jehovah to change the world, but at least people need to start thinking twice, as far as, our black people killing one another. You're pretty much giving people what they want. When you're killing each other on a regular basis, you're doing the job for them. So, I would say go back and reevaluate, and change your ways of thinking, and try to be more positive to one another, not just black people, but people in general across the world. Try to be more loving, try to be more positive towards one another, instead of, trying to tear the next person down. And just put God first. That's what I always say. Put Jehovah God first before anything. And I promise you, everything else in life will fall in order. Thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing your comments. And also pray for Willie Larkins and his family. Thank you.